Vince Carter gets the call to the Hall, but is the former Toronto Raptors star worthy of that honor? Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the Raptors. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Ryan Wolstat of the Toronto Sun. And Ryan, after 22 seasons in the NBA, Vince Carter hung up the sneakers after the 1920 season, and now, a little under 4 years later, he is reportedly set to be elected into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame as he and longtime Detroit Piston and for a short time Toronto Raptor Chauncey Billups are the class of 2024. We'll get to Billups in a bit here, but when it comes to Carter, his resume may not be as stellar compared to some of the other Hall of Famers, but how deserving do you think he is of this honor?
Well, I think you have to start with the caveat that the Naismith Hall of Fame, the standards are pretty low. Like, I mean, take nothing away from Vince Carter or anyone else in there, but you have to consider this is not a Cooperstown where guys like Dave Stieb and Carlos Delgado, who should absolutely be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, in the opinion of most sane people, it's not happening because the baseball standards are a little crazy. But the basketball thing is kind of the opposite. It's not like everyone gets in, but it's a lot easier to get in. So I think if you look at it like that, like there's no doubt he should be in. And if you look at his early career, what he did in Toronto and what he did in New Jersey at the start, and you also have to keep in mind that it looks at your international things, and he was arguably the best player on the gold medal Olympic team for the USA in 2000 and threw down one of the best dunks ever against poor Frederick Weiss back then. So if you look at his body of work, he's the only guy to play, I believe, in 4 decades. He's the only player to have a 22-year career. At one time, he was the face of the NBA when Michael Jordan left. So I think, yeah, he's a deserving choice. Again, I don't know if if it was harder to get in, would he probably lose points for never finishing higher than 10th, I believe, in MVP and never coming close to winning a title. But I think he was an awesome player, and considering who else is in there, for sure, he deserves it. In Toronto, obviously, there's a checkered history, a lot of good, some bad, the horrible exit, which wasn't all Vince's fault, but definitely a part of it was, as I've written about many times. But I think just, yeah, if you look overall, he was a really great player. And for those other accomplishments of just lasting so long, which you never would have imagined when people were calling him Vince Carter and stuff, when he seemed to be hurt every other day, just to see him play in 4 decades is pretty crazy. So good for him, and yeah, deserved.
Yeah, and I think, when I look at the resume, it's everything that you said. But, for me, the Hall of Fames are sort of like a museum. And I feel like you can't tell the story of basketball, especially in the 2000s, without
Exactly.
mentioning a
Yeah.
guy like Vince Carter. So when it comes to Chauncey Billups, he was a winner, took home the NBA title with the Pistons in 2004, of course, was a huge part of that team. And for me, Ryan, he might have been one of the more underappreciated players of the last 20 years. Never was a superstar player, but just a consistently good player that was great on both ends, of course. And as I mentioned, was a Raptor for like 22 games back in the 98 season. But do you have any sort of memories about that run for Chauncey Billups as a Raptor? And what do you think about his inclusion here with the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think going back to what you said about Vince, you can't really tell the story of that era of the NBA without pointing out that Billups was the best player on one of the only teams in NBA history that won as a true team without one dynamic superstar. Like, those Pistons defended like few teams have ever before them. Billups was Mr. Big Shot. He's the guy that got them over the hump when they brought him in from Minnesota. I believe he was Finals MVP. Just a really good career. Like, he almost took Minnesota, a terrible franchise. He almost took them to the finals with Kevin Garnett one year. So I think, again, like maybe in a tougher judging Hall of Fame type of thing, maybe a guy like Billups doesn't get in. But when you look at his overall body of work, it's a really impressive resume. He was, I mean, arguably with Ben Wallace, the best player or the co-best player on a championship team, got it done in the clutch countless times, and also lasted a pretty long time. I mean, yeah, I don't really remember the Raptor tenure too much other than him and Tracy McGrady and Marcus Camby looking like potentially the start of something really interesting. And that obviously ironically changed very quickly when most of them were gone and Vince Carter became the guy. But yeah, Billups is deserved. And the interesting thing to me is his resume is very, very similar to Kyle Lowry. So I think this just cements the fact that one day Lowry's going to be in there as well.
All right. Well, we'll be doing that Inside the Raptors video in 5 or 6 years' time when Kyle Lowry gets in. But what do you think? Does Vince Carter deserve to be in the Basketball Hall of Fame? Let us know in the comments section below. For Ryan Wolstat, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.